on Front Row Politics here on Control TV. I am Gimba Umar, and today we're going to be discussing France's involvement in Nigeria and some sweeping statements that we've been hearing from some, what should I call it now, West African countries when one of the army generals some statements that may be implicated for Nigeria. And joining us to look at these issues is the president's spokesman and special advisor on policy and communications, Dr. Daniel Bwala. He joins us from downtown London. Daniel, for joining us again.
Good evening.
Now,
Thank you very much.
Video has been making the rounds on social media, which is suggestive of some very difficult things, hard to accept, that were done by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, your principal, concerning Nigeria's security. First of all, we start by interest in Nigeria. Why has some West African countries, the likes of Mali, Burkina Faso, pushed France out? Why are we accepting France?
First of all, there is no evidence to say. I don't know what you mean by accepting France, whether you are talking of bilateral relationship or you are referring to providing our country or our land for what we call foreign military base. If the question about accepting France is about relationship, that is virtually what every country of the world will do to explore and develop a relationship, bilateral relationship with partners. And usually the relationship is developed around areas of mutual interest. So, like in the case of Nigeria, areas of trade. If you have been following business activities lately, you would see that we have French companies in Nigeria, we have Nigerian companies in France. In the last visit of Mr. President, you saw how, for example, UBA signed an understanding to establish the branch of UBA in France. We already have Zenith Bank in France as well. And of course, there is also the agreement to explore areas of tapping into our natural resources for the purpose of promoting, trade. Of course, commerce, as well as transport and an exchange in education and culture and the rest. This is a relationship that has existed for many years, even before the president became the president of Nigeria. I remember there is this story that was given of the president when he was a governor in Lagos State when the current president of France was, I think, doing internship or an attaché or whatever it is with French embassy in Lagos, and that's how the relationship developed. So, if you're talking in the sense of relationship between Nigeria and France in the general sense, we have a very, very strong tie, and we intend to deepen it and strengthen it for the mutual benefit of both countries. But if the question refers to the provision of our land for French military base that is anchored on what is happening in the Sahel, like you rightly talked about, some countries rejecting France, then we do not have and have not provided or committed to providing our land as a foreign base either to France or to any other country at all. You will recall that many years ago, when our war against Boko Haram was intense and we needed so badly, if I recall, intervention. There was even then the conversation as to whether to allow the South African mercenaries to come and operate. And I remember the military of Nigeria, the armed forces resisted that. And so even when we needed foreign help by all means necessary to fight Boko Haram, we never provided our land as a military base. Not to talk of now, when we have, especially in this administration, relatively achieved marked success in the area of fight against terrorism, banditry, and similar criminal activities. We do not have any plan, and we don't have any of our land provided to France as a foreign base. But you know that the head of state of Niger is playing a mind game. He is in a desperate search for relevance in the sense of, or not relevance, desperate search for legitimacy. Because you see, like I said a few days ago, whenever military take over, usually they do so when they think that there is a problem on ground. and they come with this narrative that they are going to solve the problem. So there is usually the initial honeymoon, like you saw even in Niger when the people were throwing salute, singing and dancing all the places. But honeymoon does not last long. And once the honeymoon ends, what will preserve the military interregnum is when they can show that they have a plan and go beyond just having a plan to executing those plans for the good of their country. The man has hit a rock. There seems to be no idea of how to proceed further. And that is why, in a desperate search for breadth of legitimacy, he resorted to that. I have a feeling that he may have done that in cahoot with politicians who are very dirty in their political activities in Nigeria, who may have probably inspired him, encouraged him, or asked him to do that. That's why you saw how he granted an interview in a native language. And the whole idea is to instigate the northern Nigeria against the president.
Daniel, let me read very clearly. These are translated as President Tinubu should come out and tell Nigerians the truth on how much he received from France. I mean, this is very dire. I mean, to cast aspersions on a president like this, some believe that there cannot be smoke without fire.
You see, um, we know better than that, right? Even if you scale it down to our normal day life, the minute somebody travels to a place and you come back, the natural belief is that you came with something. Either you came with Esta code or you came with some things that you bought from there. I mean, it's natural. What took the president of Nigeria to France on the invitation of the French government was not a secret visit. This is a visit that has been reported throughout and by all television, radio, audio, audiovisual, print media. It is in the public domain, the visit of Mr. President. The conversation has been or was in the public domain. The various agreements were in the public domain. Some of the agreements that were signed were also broadcast and reported. So it is natural for somebody to think that with this kind of successful trip, where there is a state visit and state reception and all of that, it must culminate in deliverables. And that's his suspicion. But when he said that the President Tinubu should come out and say he came with money, I mean, if he should know better than that. I mean, this is childish in the sense that if you have an intel or intelligence here on the outcome of a visit, you, in the same way that he claimed to be specific in mentioning names of individuals, why was he not specific in mentioning the amount, which in this case is very crucial to his agenda for granting that interview in the first place? So we know the war of attrition, we know mind game, but in his own case, it is very sad because for what do you call it, Niger as a country is like a little brother to Nigeria, and over the years, you must have known as a journalist how much Nigeria sacrifices and keeps sacrificing for the good of the Niger Republic. Nigerians that are in Niger are many. We're provided support and will continue to provide support for the Niger Republic, which is so sad and disappointing that
Wonders, Daniel. Look at the optics and the developments up to this time when Mr. President was actually in France before the elections. And
Mhm.
now one will tend to juxtapose these two evidences and say that perhaps this general is speaking the truth.
there is no
Is
truth in
there
what he's
anything you
saying.
can tell us to debunk
There is no truth in that. Ordinarily,
at all?
there is no truth in that. Ordinarily, we will not have even glorified him to even join issues with him because, I mean, it's out in the public domain, his guesswork. But as a country and as government, we are very particular about the citizens, and we want to be sure that the citizens are properly sensitized and given the information for the purpose of accountability. That's the reason why we are taking the pains to respond to some of his baseless allegations. Now, if this is what he's saying, then I want to ask you a question. You know that these three countries that left, they've established a pact with Russia, right? They provided their space for Russian military to come and take base there. So did he provide some of these things to be able to win election? He's not even democratically elected. They seize power from democratically elected officials in the Niger Republic. And this is more than a year now. What have they been able to deliver to their people in deliverables? In terms of President Bola Tinubu visiting France, I hope you know that for decades, President Tinubu has been traveling to France for decades, and he travels more often. So the notion that he traveled to get money to be able to conduct we're not preparing for any election. We're busy delivering on the promise of good governance to the Nigerian people. Nobody in this administration has had the time to talk about politics of election because we feel that Nigerian people should be taken seriously for us to deliver on the governance rather than abusing their mind talking about politics. That's why we have resisted the temptation to talk about politics of 2027. The president is busy delivering on the mandate. And we have myriad of challenges in Nigeria. We're doing our best to deal with those challenges so that the Nigerian people will have quality life. So that basis allegation about visiting France and collecting something, I mean, it is childish in the real sense of the word. But the reason we take the pain to say it is so our people do not think that what he's saying is the truth. But clearly, from even his voice, as you can see, you will see the voice of somebody who is losing the legitimacy and popularity, and he's desperately trying to seek sympathy and support from Nigerian politicians, which was why he granted that interview.
I know then that you may see this interview as not important, but as you said, it has spread wild. It has gone, viral, especially in northern Nigeria, where you are from. And of great importance is what he said about security breach along the borders of Sokoto, Zamfara, and Kebbi on the issue of this uh, Boko Haram, or is it ISWAP also, which he said that one listening to him, one can easily agree, Daniel, on his submissions because uh, that area has been one area that has been under siege by terrorist organizations, including Boko Haram before this administration, or should I say, this party, your party, the APC, were able to, clip down their wings appreciably to a level. But when you hear him say that particular breach of security from Sokoto, Zamfara, and Kebbi, what do you make of that?
Again, it is sad to say that what he's saying can easily be believed. What is it in what he's saying that can be believed? Now, we have, in this our fight against Boko Haram, an insurgency, I hope you know that multiple times we have had to chase Boko Haram out of Nigerian border from Niger. Multiple times we have had Boko Haram and terrorists entered into the territory of Nigeria through Niger. Should we assume that he is responsible or that he supported them or he provided the platform for them? You see, some of the towns he mentioned in that interview, very sadly, that he claimed were towns, hosting the French military base and Nigerian terrorists. You recall that the National Security Advisor granted an interview with BBC in Hausa, in which he asked that the BBC, as well as all well-meaning investigative journalists or media houses, should just take the pain of going to all those towns and confirm whether or not what he said was true. I mean, it's baseless. If you go to those towns, you won't see French soldiers or French military base. You won't see. So this terrorists and the fight against terrorism, you remember, is along the Sahel. Sometimes they come from Mali, sometimes they pass through Niger, Chad, and we've had joint uh, uh, I think they call it joint military operation anyway between the countries around the Sahel for us to be able to deal decisively against Boko Haram. It is even painful that himself as a military leader of Niger, who knows over time we have had to jointly work together in the fight against insecurity, and Boko Haram will now come out and be speaking things that have to do with security situation and intelligence. It is very sad. So the state of his mind is what we don't know. His motivation for doing what he's doing is what we don't know. We are yet to find out. And you know that there is cause and effect. Some of these things he's doing are consequential. And that's why he has to be careful about that. Because it is not to say, as a country, we do not have our capacity to also punish him for what he's saying. But that's not the posture of Nigeria. That's not the posture of the president of Nigeria. And we've always looked at not just Niger, some of the countries around that place as little brother, and we have supported them. We'll continue to support them. But his allegations are baseless. They are untrue. They are false, outright false. It is sad that journalists have not been able to give him a follow up, or to take the pain to go and meet him and ask him on critical issues so he can furnish them. So his own idea, the unfortunate motivation behind what he did may have been to just throw it to the teeming population in the northern Nigeria, who may not have time for all the verification, but they will believe hook, like, and sinker what he's saying. But he has failed because there is an awareness. We've taken the pains to communicate to Nigerians, even in those towns where he claimed, to make them understand that what he is saying is baseless, cannot be substantiated, and it is a politicization of what he's doing, simply because he's losing popularity, doesn't have plan on how to forge forward for his people. Look at the hunger in that country. It is so terrible. So he should rather be thinking about how he can partner with Nigeria to bring deliverables to his people. He created his own problem. You see, military administration is a thing of the past. It is not a thing of the present, because the minute a military take over government, countries of the world that would have ordinarily conduct business with you will be restrained, will be restricted. There is very little you can get from democratic countries around the world, because the concept is that we only support each other if the government in place are democratically elected government. So strange and alienated type of government would always result in hunger, sanction, and all of that. And the minute you start having that problem, don't look to your neighbor as the reason for the scapegoating.
Daniel, let me not let you off the hook on this one, because he mentioned those villages, or shall I say, even the forests, as you said. He mentioned Kurna, uh, Kangarua, Dogon Chuku at Baga in Borno. That's where you are from. Do you know of those places, especially those locations he made mention of? Uh, what are still that the French army occupied those areas and they have a base there? You have said that there is nothing like that, but with the precision with which he has spoken, and he is a military man, and he has had to work at some point as a joint forces with Nigeria and Chad to try to secure the infiltration of Boko Haram, which he clearly said at that point. And he said that Nigeria has this information, and he
You
said
see,
that we should ask
the thing about
the
that's
Nigerian
why,
government.
right, that's why, no, you see, he who asserts proofs, right? He is making outlandish claims that he can't or has not been able to substantiate. I mean, it is childish for you to make that kind of heavy claim without providing the evidence. If he does have the evidence, he would have probably shown a pictorial evidence, or audiovisual evidence to prove that there is a French base in that part of the country. And I'm sure that he knows more than that, to say that if you want to talk and you want to convince the world that this is what you're saying, you should be able to show evidence. And you mentioned that he has participated
The
in drone
evidence that
operation.
he talked about was a place called Canada.
Yes, what I'm saying is that you mention a place is not an evidence, it's an allegation. Evidence means if I say right now that in Gwagwalada there is a a handful of military officials, or there is a military base in Gwagwalada. How to prove that is for me to be able to show you, and there are many ways you can do that. You can use a drone system. Probably you have participated in that, or you know people who are there. There will be pictures, there will be video to prove, and satellite imagery that will prove that indeed in that location he talked about there is a French base. But to open your mouth and just allege, it's just like me saying that in Lagos State in Maryland there is American embassy. If I cannot prove it, does saying it now substantiate it? But you see, when we're living in a world where the manipulation of the media space is so simple with the advent of new media that people do not even have time for fact checking. If you have noticed, what has ravaged the world in terms of fake news and misinformation and disinformation is that just throw it. If you throw it, you believe that 80% of the people will believe it without verifying. And then only 20 or less than 20 will take the time to verify to see what you throw, whether it is true or not. And the aim of some of this mischievous element is that when you throw it, you feel that there is no time for you to verify. And before people will get to verify, you would have achieved what you wanted, which is that you want to create chaos, you want to create disaffection, you want to take people to the street to start protesting, or you want to do one thing or the other. But in this case, it's failed because he does not talk with any iota of knowledge and intelligence that is required of a military officer that he is to say, I'm talking based on fact based evidence. For example, when they alleged that they wanted the French military base to leave their country, they had the pictures and the video of the French base in their country, and they had the timeline. So when the people were leaving, they also had the picture and the video showing that the French military people were packing out of their country. I mean, that is to the detail, because if it is to allege and keep quiet, what if he says, okay, you are to leave by tomorrow and they fail to leave? Is he going to assume that they've left? He has to prove, he has to confirm that they've actually left his country. So when you make that kind of sketchy allegation, calling towns, to call the names of towns and villages, if you come from the part of Nigeria, part of the northern Nigeria, we've had and porous borders, bordering some of these countries. I mean, that's why we're working on ensuring that we have strong border security. People from Niger come to Nigeria, Nigerians go to Niger, they transact, they do a lot of things. So very easily, people from Niger have lived in Maiduguri, in all these places he has mentioned. Nigerians have lived in those places. Some of them might still even be living there. Why don't you have evidence to prove that? So it is an
But what
allegation.
about in
And like I
Sokoto,
said,
Daniel? What about in Sokoto? ISWAP is in effect operating there with a view, you know.
you see, what he is saying is not news. Mr. Gimba, since 2010, when the Boko Haram struck and then the fight became intense, it is of common knowledge that at the beginning they were living in what do you call this place? They call there's this forest in Borno State. Um, I remember it just escaped my mind. Boko Haram were there, and there was effort to dislodge them. Sambisa Forest. So, if at the time when they occupied and control the place, is it anything revelation that you say Boko Haram are in those places? Then about Sokoto and Zamfara that he's mentioning, I mean, we have been saying it over and over. The Nigerian army has said it. Intel communities in Nigeria have said that some of these terrorists operate in those areas. So that they come, they go, and they operate in those areas. Is it a revelation? You get the point. It is not a revelation, it's a fact that we know. If you say there are thieves in the forest, is it a revelation? Thieves operate in the forest. If you say that kidnappers and bandits and people who kidnap people on the road are in, okay, for example, there was this information that at some point the kidnappers were operating very heavily between Kaduna and Abuja. Is that a revelation? It's a fact that has been established because of the consistent operations that they are doing. So these places he has mentioned is also a fact of the by the oppression of these terrorists. We know that they stay around those areas. And don't forget, Nigeria is a country with vast land. Niger state alone has a mass, an expanse of land that is more than how many states? In some countries, even close to a country. We have large expanse of land in Nigeria. So in the forest where we do not have the military, they are ungoverned spaces. It is very likely that these insurgents and terrorists will be operating there. So, but what he's saying is, it's like you're stating the fact and then creating a conjecture. Is he saying that it is the Nigerian armed forces that settle the people there? Certainly no. And we have been seeing the operations and the successful operations of the Nigerian military. Even a few days ago, they were involved in an operation that killed the bandits. Then we had these the collateral damage on some innocent Nigerians, which we deeply regret. So it's a fact. What he's saying is not like he is giving a revelation about what we know to be areas where terrorists operate. So it's not new, but he wants to create a conjecture. He wants to create a narrative that will never work, and it is not working in Nigeria. It is very unfortunate that he could make those skating allegations. Mentioning towns and cities does not amount to substantiating of the fact. Go beyond mentioning and substantiate these facts.
We needed more clarity on those issues, Daniel. That is why we have picked on you, and very gladly so too, because you always have those information at the tip of your hands, and always ready to give us a full feel of what it is that we needed to make those clarifications. But are you saying now that the new, in terms of trade, but uh, this newfound relationship at the advent of the rejection of France by West African French speaking countries and then the acceptance by Nigeria now, should Nigerians go to sleep knowing well that all is still intact, all is still well, no cause for worries?
The relationship we have and we're seeking to develop with France is not very different from the same relationship we seek to develop with other countries, such as the United States. We've even developed trade relationship with Russia. There was this Africa Russia summit that was held the other time. So we continue to explore opportunities as we collectively engage with nations of the world. Some of the relationships are bilateral, some are multilateral, but they are all the relationship to enhance on this country's relationship and improve trade and provide the prosperity for the people. And so Nigeria's relationship with France is not hinged on the relationship that Niger has had with France. They are Francophone countries. Remain France, probably they are colonial masters. Nigeria does not have a colonial history with France. You understand? But even the England that we've had colonial history with, our relationship with them is mutually beneficial to all, and we are very particular about our territorial integrity and national interest. And any relationship that we seek to establish must be one that meets up with our national interest and promotes the prosperity of the Nigerian people, whether in Nigeria or in England or in France or in any part of the world. So no relationship is different. And our relationship is based on mutual benefit. We review every now and then. If a relationship in a particular area, say education or culture or trade, comes to a point where the benefit is one-sided, we seek to review and then renew the relationship so that it will be mutually beneficial to all. There is no strange thing about our relationship with France in the same way that there is no strange thing about our relationship with England, with the United States, or with Russia. And the fact that
That's a good
they
place to
have
let it
problem
rest.
with the fact that they have problem with France does not mean Nigeria should also join in having a problem with France. It doesn't work that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For giving us the clarity upon this video, especially in northern Nigeria. Sweeping statements, indeed, they are by the Army General. But we are still very okay that you have this information and you're able to clear the air. We last saw on social media that what you said was actually being translated languages in northern Nigeria, especially the Kanuris, and in Pidgin, if I'm
Full
not
day and
mistaken.
Hausa.
And for full, yeah, absolutely, that's the Fulani language. Daniel, it's always a pleasure having you to talk with us here on Control TV, Front Row
Thank you.
Politics, and to everyone who's been a part of the show. We do urge you that anytime we come live, you can also join in and share. And you can also find us on our other social media platforms on Facebook, on Instagram, and on TikTok, of course. We'll be having this come up on TikTok very shortly. Daniel, the special advisor to the president on policy and communications, as well as the spokesperson of Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Thank you again,
Thank
and
you.
bye for
Thank
now.
you.